सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। We start with chapter 14, meditation.
Meditation.
Yeah.
Can I start reading, sir?
Yes, Prasad. Yes. Yes.
Meditation. Technique of meditation. A human stands out of supreme amongst all living beings by virtue of possessing both gross and subtle intellects. The subtle intellect is the faculty of thinking, reasoning, judging, deciding. It is designated as gross when this faculty operates in the terrestrial realm. As the thinking is confined to the presence of the world, and when it transcends the terrestrial world to conceive the transcendental, it is termed subtle. The subtle intellect distinguishes the eternal from ephemeral, the real from the unreal. It is used in meditation to attain spiritual enlightenment. No other being possesses this unique faculty. At best, animals can claim to have a rudimentary gross intellect, that with which a dog distinguishes its master from a stranger, food from dirt, etc. But it cannot stretch beyond that, beyond the minuscule part of the terrestrial world. No animal possesses a subtle intellect. The mind is merely a continuous flow of thoughts. It acts like a film in a movie projector. The film consists of a series of pictures. These pictures passing to the light in a projector project the movie on the screen. The rapid movement of the pictures produces the solidarity of the projection. A similar projection is this world. Your mind is like the film, and your thoughts the pictures. The rapid movement of thoughts through the light of consciousness, the self creates the solid, substantial world. Where there is no thought flow, no mind, there is no world. Even when the mind is temporarily cut off, the world is no more, as in deep sleep. When the thoughts are completely eradicated from the mind, the world disappears. The light of consciousness alone remains. You realize your divine self. The mind of the present generation is in a chaotic state. People's thoughts run wildly in all directions, seeking material gain and sensual pleasure, which causes the mind to be agitated. An agitated mind cannot concentrate, much less meditate. The strategy of meditation is to converge the mind to a single thought and ultimately annul it. The practice of meditation, therefore, requires a mind free from the pressures of extroverted pursuits, a mind that remains calm, composed, and has turned introvert. One attains that state through sustained physical, mental, and intellectual disciplines. By practicing karma, bhakti, and jnana yogas, the path of action, devotion, and knowledge. A mind thus turned introvert is made to chant a mantra, a word symbol representing the supreme God, Brahman. The chant is known as japa. You could choose a mantra that inspires you most. In japa, the mind repeats the mantra. The intellect observes. witnesses the single thought flow. During the chant, the mind may slip into other thoughts. It has a tendency to wander away. The intellect is employed to pull the mind back to the chosen line of thought. Thus, by repeated effort, the mind is kept focused on the chant. Meditation is the art of maintaining the mind in focus upon a chosen thought to the exclusion of all other thoughts. In the process of meditation, the chant is gradually brought to mental whisper to finally end in silence. The intellect remains aware of the entire proceeding until the moment of silence is reached. The silence is cessation of thought flow, which indicates extinction of the mind. The intellect, which has been observing the chant and also ceases as there is nothing for it to observe. What remains is pure silence, pure awareness, pure consciousness, the absolute reality, Brahman. Meditation is a scientific technique to exhaust your thoughts and expose the supreme self within. The intellect plays an all important role in it, maintaining its control on the mind during the entire procedure. Meditation, therefore, is not a mere mechanical repetition of a mantra. The human mind has a tendency to be drawn to a particular object or being, tangible or intangible, even towards a deity, and its thoughts start to flow in that direction. If the intellect does not exercise its control over the mind, the thought flow continues. The mind has its way. It can cherish the thought of the object continuously for a period of time, as young lovers do. This is mere emotional indulgence, mental infatuation, when the mind runs in the direction of its desired object without the awareness of the intellect. Whereas meditation requires a disciplined effort by the practitioner. The intellect needs to be alert to keep the mind's focus on the chant, prevent it from slipping into any other thought. Such programmed disciplined concentration and the chosen mantra is meditation. Uncontrolled, indisciplined thought flow is mental indulgence, whereas controlled, disciplined thought flow is concentration, is meditation. Both are flow of thoughts but of opposite nature. They produce conflicting results. Mental indulgence increases your desires, while meditation raises your desire. They act like diarrhea or purgative, seemingly the same, but with a distinct difference. Diarrhea is a disease, while purgative is a remedy. Likewise, thoughts running after the world unchecked by discerning intellect increases your desire, creates mental instability, whereas disciplined thought flow, governed by the intellect, decreases your desires. Finally, the practice of meditation annihilates your past desire and regains your supreme self. You cannot practice single pointed meditation until you have risen well above attachment and desire. When your mind becomes free from worldly attractions and entanglements, remains under control of the intellect, and your object in your transaction of life, your objective in your transaction of life. The progress and success in meditation is therefore directly proportional to the preparation of the mind. Your mind must be cleansed before you reach the seat of meditation. The purer the mind, the easier it is to practice meditation. Purity of mind means rendering it free of desire and expectation, means renunciation, nothing less. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God, assures Christ. You must first gain the purity of mind, but people directly try to meditate without the initial preparation. without purifying their mind. They will not give up their attachment and desire, their hope and expectation, yearning and craving. They will not pay the price for what they seek. Those extroverted people living a material and sensual life wish to become the Buddha overnight. Meditation is the highest spiritual practice. It is it requires pre-meditative preparation. Your mind must be rendered equanimous to be able to meditate effectively. To plunge into meditation directly without preparation is futile, even detrimental. The time spent in meditation, the small part of the day, the rest of the day you are preoccupied with worldly activity. Your activity during the day tells upon your practice of meditation. Egocentric, selfish activity agitates your mind, and an agitated mind cannot meditate, whereas selfless, sacrificial activity makes your mind calm and composed, renders it conducive for meditation. The human mind is ulcerated by self centered activity. Meditation cannot help heal the ulcerated mind if the activity during the day continues to be selfish. Just as a wound treated by a surgeon can never heal if you keep scratching and irritating it the rest of the day. This is a sad plight of those who claim to practice meditation, who sincerely try to meditate every day, while all day they indulge in desire ridden selfish activity. That ruins the effort in meditation. Continuing this way, their mind develops frustration, bitterness. They turn into ugly caricatures in life.
A few important factors that needs to be known before we understand meditation. He starts with that. First is the gross intellect and the subtle intellect. In relation to the world, it is called gross. In relation to the transcendental reality, it is called subtle. Subtle intellect distinguishes the eternal and ephemeral. It is the subtle intellect that is used. Intellect is that which is used in meditation. Intellect is that which monitors the mind. Mind cannot monitor itself. The function of the intellect is to monitor the mind. And this faculty, this function of the, not faculty, this function of the intellect is very much important to be strengthened, developed in order to practice meditation. That is the technique of meditation. To put it very simply, what is the technique of meditation? The mind is a flow of thought, and intellect is the faculty that can observe the mind, monitor the mind, guide the mind, keep the mind focused. All this is the function of the intellect. Meditation being single pointed focus, a very strong, powerful intellect that is strengthened by the practices, whatever the practices that we have seen already, the karma, bhakti, jnana, yoga, whatever the practices of all that is, an intellect that is strengthened by that would be able to monitor the mind. And the powerful intellect monitors the mind in meditation. without the play of intellect, there is no meditation. Again, I repeat, without the play of intellect, without the role of the intellect, there is no practice of meditation. If meditation means repetition, continuously repeating something again and again and again, if that is what meditation is all about, he gives the example of a person who is young lovers. They constantly think about each other. We will not call them as meditating. The boy is constantly thinking about the girl is constantly thinking about the boy. We will not call them as meditating. The mother, she is sleeping. The newborn child is there in the cradle. The mother is sleeping, fast asleep. The child turns little bit this side, that side, the mother wakes up. She is so alert, but you will not call her meditating. What is the difference? There is no conscious, deliberately focusing on something. The mind itself flows towards its objects of attachment, and it can flow towards anything. You can develop an attachment to a deity and the thoughts can flow towards the deity. You can develop an attachment to a person and the thought can flow towards the person. You can develop an attachment to a mantra and the thought can flow towards that mantra by itself, which is not meditation. Meditation is a deliberate, conscious activity. The conscious activity of the mind, the flow of thought is being consciously monitored by the intellect. To explain that, he says, understand the distinction between the other species and the human being, which is the intellect. And this intellect is very important in playing the role of it. It is the intellect that plays a very important role or all important role in meditation. So first thing that we have to understand is, before I get into meditation, before a person starts the practice of meditation, how strong or how weak is my intellect? But if I don't even know that there is this thing called intellect, what do we do? The people doesn't even, but sir, I didn't even know that there is this thing called intellect, because in no meditation classes they spoke about the intellect. Nowhere else they talk except you few people. Nobody else seems to be talking about this intellect at all. Therefore, I didn't even know that there is this thing called intellect. You need to know that there is this intellect, and that intellect has to be strengthened. That's all. I didn't know. Means you can't meditate. You have to know that there is this thing called intellect. You have to strengthen the intellect and then get into meditation. And what is intellect? We started defining intellect very clearly as the ability to monitor the mind is intellect. Mind cannot monitor itself. Mind cannot guide itself. Mind cannot develop the focus by itself. So there is this intellect that keeps the mind in focus. So what is very important? The intellect has to keep the mind in focus. The intellect has to keep the mind, whatever the focus is, it has to keep it there. It's called concentration, and single pointed concentration is meditation. For example, we will not say we meditate in this class. We say we concentrate on the class. We concentrate on the work. Meaning, the mind doesn't get disturbed outside the field of activity. That's what it means. The mind doesn't go to anything outside the chosen field of activity. It means there is concentration. The tendency of the mind is to slip, and the intellect monitors it. If the desires are very powerful and intellect is not that strong, intellect would not be able to keep the mind in focus, in concentration. Like even in a classroom like this, where we have chosen to attend. It's not that we are forced to attend. Where we have chosen to attend, the mind keeps slipping. Not only the mind keeps slipping, the mind goes elsewhere. 15-20 minutes of the class is gone, and then suddenly you realize you are in the class. And what happens? The statement that you heard 20 minutes back and the statement that you hear now, the mind connects it both perfectly. And you also say, I understand. Whereas for 20 minutes, the mind is not even present. This is what he says as the mind in a chaotic state. The mind in this chaotic state should not be getting into meditation. The mind in this chaotic state should get into out of the chaos first. What is out of chaos means? I choose to focus on something, the mind stays there. I choose to focus on the class, the mind focuses in the class. I choose to focus on watching a movie, the mind focuses on watching the movie. It means what? The intellect is powerful enough to keep the mind focused. How to bring that? That we have seen. Sustained karma bhakti jnana yogas. By the sustained practice of karma bhakti jnana yogas, he says, the mind is brought under some kind of a control. That controlled mind is what is known as the introvert. Introverted mind is the mind that can focus, concentrate. To that introvert mind, japa is given as a technique. Now we'll talk about japa later. He's going to explain. We'll talk about japa later. To that introverted mind, japa is given as the technique. And what is japa? Japa is nothing but repetition of a mantra. In the classroom, it is concentration because we are using very many words, we are using very many stories, we are using very many examples, but we don't cross the boundary of the philosophy. We go through a lot of variety, but the variety is restricted to the boundary of philosophy. In meditation, it's not a huge canvas like a boundary of philosophy. In japa, in meditation, it is the mantra. Invariably, the mantra is that which has to inspire you. Mantra is that which has to inspire you. And they have and everybody has their own mantra. And then you come to the religious schools, they teach you mantra. The first they say Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. It's too much. After a while, it is too much in meditation. And then it says, and then it goes to Om Namo Narayana. And then it goes to Om Namah Shivaya. And then it goes to Om. And then it goes to the elongating the elongating the two chants. Learning to dwell on silence between the two chant, for which we use the mantra. So this is the technique of, this is the japa. In and through this japa, irrespective of the mantra that you choose, we are seeing now carefully, irrespective of the mantra that you choose, whatsoever the mantra you choose, the technique is this. What? Mind focuses upon the thought, intellect, make sure the mind doesn't slip into anything else other than that. Mind is that which chants. As you are chanting, the mind slips into something. You can, if you are used to japa a little bit, you know that you can go on chanting and mind has gone elsewhere. That is why certain techniques are given, so that when the mind goes, there is a jerk, so that you can bring the attention. You can bring the attention back. All these techniques will be seen. What is jap? What is mantra? A mantra is that which should not generate so much of association of thoughts. The mantra must not generate association of ideas. If I say Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, the mind will go to Ramayana, the mind will go to Sita, and then the mind will go to, by the time the 10th Hare Rama comes, mind has gone elsewhere. So what they do in mantra, a mantra is that which doesn't create this association of ideas. Association of ideas means it should not create branches. The word Rama has many branches. The word Krishna has many branches. The word Shiva has many branches. The word, any word you can use. All these has many branches, but here what we use in meditation is a mantra that you choose the mantra in such a way that it does not slip into any other thoughts. Why do we do that? Mind itself has a tendency to slip into thoughts. Mind itself has its own tendency to slip into other thoughts as it is focusing on one. On top of it, what happens when you choose the mantra, which also has very many thoughts, it becomes more conducive for the mind to slip. So what they do, the wandering mind, the intellect pulls back. The wandering mind, the intellect pulls back. Thus, by repeated effort, the mind is kept focused on the chant. It requires a lot of effort to keep the mind focused on the chant. Learn to dwell on silence between two ohms is the technique of meditation. Learning to dwell on the silence. Absence of everything. Absence of everything else other than me, who is aware of silence. Rest of the thing becomes, rest of it simply stop existing. If you have done the karma, bhakti, jnana and nididhyasana and all properly and come to the stage of meditation, the silence will not be a emptiness. That silence you will, that silence will be something, one of that silence that you would experience is not one of an emptiness. The silence would be one of the consciousness. So you are making an effort to be in it for a while. After a while, the mind itself will slip. After the while, what happens? The mind itself will slip. After a period of time, you get so fatigued that you can't bring the mind back. You stop the meditation and go back to the other spiritual practices. After the while, you stop the other practices and you stop the meditative practices and go back to other activities. The next day, you come back to meditation. Also, an important factor in meditation is when you are trying to sit in silence, the activities of your day starts popping up when you sit in meditation. If the activities are one of selfish and self-centered activities, you will not be able to meditate. For the thoughts are too many, too frequent, and beyond a point you will not be able to even meditate. Therefore, what is very important in meditation? Mantra is important. The play of intellect, first thing we spoke about, the intellect is very important in meditation. Then the mantra that you choose is also very important in meditation. The third important factor in meditation is your day's activities. For your day's activities is that which tells upon when you sit for meditation. You have been working on a business project, or you have been attending to some function, or somebody is sick at home. Mind is so affected by any one of these, and when you sit in meditation, where the mind will go? Yeah. And that too, if the child is in Australia going through sickness, what will happen? Yeah. And what happens? The mind keeps slipping, going back again and again and again. It shows that what? It shows that the selfishness is a bit too much. They have not yet become selfless. For selflessness is that very important for meditation, because a selfless mind will not, the thoughts will not arise by itself. The thought will not come by itself. In the case of a selfish mind, you do not want the thought to come, but the thought comes by itself. You do not want the thoughts to come. You somehow wants to make sure that there are no thoughts. You somehow wants to make sure that you are in silence. And if you are not trained and well developed and all that, the silence will be too long, too elongating. You will feel like hours and hours and hours you have sat and you opened the eyes, only 2-3 minutes would have gone. Unless you have fallen off to sleep or something. Unless you have fallen off to sleep or something, then it's a different case altogether. You consciously do, the 3-4 minutes itself will make you believe that you have been meditating for hours together, and you come out extremely fatigued, tired. Because the day's activities are in exactly opposite to the preparation for meditation. So the preparation for meditation is a calmness. What is the calmness means? Thoughts not arising by itself. Chaotic mind doesn't need stimuli from the external world. Chaotic mind doesn't need stimuli from the external world. It goes on. It goes on running towards the world even when there is no stimuli. In the case of an advanced practitioner, the stimuli is there because there is no desire, the thoughts doesn't flow. In the case of meditation, the blankness, you can't, I don't know what word to use. Language, till now, language has not created a word to describe that state between two chants. Till today, language doesn't have a word. You can call it blankness, you can call it consciousness, you can call it awareness, but then you know that none of these words are anywhere closer to what it is. None of these words are anywhere closer to what it is. People use these words: awareness, consciousness, silence, emptiness, blankness, inner silence. Silence is always inner only. There is no external silence. Silence is always inner only. Inner silence. Very many words are used, but all these words have no connection to what is happening in between the two chants. Very important is to make sure that your day's activities are aligned towards selflessness for your meditation to be effective. If your day's activities are not aligned towards selflessness, and when you get into meditation, that act of that practice of meditation would be futile. It's a futile effort. Okay, if it is a futile effort, it's all right. It's not only a futile effort, it produces contrary reactions. It produces contrary reaction. What is the contrary reaction? The contrary reaction of one of increased frustrations. Even today, in the households here, they say, no, grandfather is praying, be quiet, be quiet. Any small thing, his anger, he will flare up in anger. And all the puja things will fly, isn't it? All the puja things will fly. And he's supposed to be doing prayer meditation. Why? Unprepared mind, when it sits, it will get more frustrated, more angry, more into whatever the five symptoms are. Whatever the five symptoms are, it gets more affected by that. Therefore, another important thing in the technique of meditation is be aware that your day's activities must be selfless in nature. The selflessness is what is called as purity of mind. A pure mind is a selfless mind. A selfless mind is a pure mind. Both are synonyms. That's where he quotes Jesus Christ and said, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." In that calmness alone, you will be able to see God. So first gain the purity of mind. First gain the purity of mind. And how do you gain the purity of mind? That we have studied already. The assumption here is we have done all these practices and we have a pure mind now. That is the assumption here. What are the practices? The sustained practice of karma, bhakti, and jnana yoga. The sustained practices of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, and all these spiritual practices put together would bring about a purity, a calm mind, a mind that is not craving is calm. A mind that is not craving is calm. A mind that is not agitated, that is not agitated by results becomes calm. What does the calm mind means? It's not the mind that you forcefully keep it calm. This is the first mistake that people make. They want to make the mind calm. You can't make the mind calm. Through knowledge and understanding and spiritual practices, you can remove the cravings and the affectations over the results. If you can take care of these two, by taking care of these factors, the mind becomes calm. You can't calm the mind. The only way in which the mind gets calm is the natural process of deep sleep. That's all. The only way where the mind gets calm is for a layperson in the state of deep sleep. That is why the deep sleep technically is called Ananda Maya Kosha. Because that is the only time where you get that Ananda. Abpada, I had a very nice, peaceful sleep. How much ever you are happy in the waking state, how much ever you are happy in the dream state, how much ever you are successful in the waking state, how much ever you are successful in the dream state, what gives the calmness? The sleep, the deep sleep. What is that state of deep sleep? Where the mind itself goes. I'm not talking about deep sleep now. I'm just giving that as a comparison. What happens in meditation? The mind itself doesn't. You have seen flower pot, no? For Diwali, we keep the flower pot. As soon as you come from deep sleep state to waking state, your mind functions like the flower pot. Have you ever observed that? It starts with one spark. It starts with one thought. Even before you can blink your eyes and look at it, there is a huge thing. Those who have not seen flower pots, you have to see the video of a flower pot. Diwali we use. On the Diwali fireworks, we use the flower pot. And you would have seen flower pots, no? Yes. Now you understand. It doesn't need any external stimuli at all. The mind itself, the thought itself flows without the stimuli. That is the chaotic mind. And that chaotic mind is brought under control. Control means it's made to calm. And what is calmness? Just now we saw calmness. What is calmness? A mind that is free from craving and expectations. A mind that is free from worries of the past and anxieties for the future is a calm mind. You can't forcefully make the mind calm. Calmness is an happening. Calmness is not an effort. Or the very effort to make the mind calm itself will make the mind more stressed. I have to calm the mind, I have to calm the mind, I have to calm the mind. The very effort that you make to calm the mind itself will take the calmness away. Therefore, calmness is not by, you can't calm the mind directly by clipping, by eliminating these few things. Calmness happens. Just as they say, love is a happening, no, it happens. Love is not, you can't make an effort to love somebody. If you make an effort to love somebody, no, that becomes like a play act. No, that's what they do on their plays. That's what they do in the movies. That's not, it happens. It happens means something else you do, as a result of it, calmness happens. Cause and effect. What is it? The calmness is the effect. The cause is the spiritual practices. By the spiritual practices, the calmness is attained. Once you have attained a reasonably good level of calmness, you can start practicing meditation. The pre-meditative preparation. This is what the pre-meditative preparation is all about. What is the pre-meditative preparation? Withdrawing from the preoccupations of the world, the mental withdrawal. Who is qualified for meditation? A person who has kept self-realization as the ideal is the person who is fit for meditation. That's why in the introduction to meditation last week, we discussed that it's not a therapy for peace of mind. A peaceful mind, a calm mind meditates. Remember last week we said, you don't meditate for attaining peace of mind. You do something else by which the mind becomes relatively calm and peaceful. With that relatively calm, peaceful mind, you can meditate. And how do you know that your mind has peace and calm? Thoughts will not arise by itself. Thoughts will not arise by itself. Today, as soon as the eyes are opened, thought starts. Thought starts coming. And what kind of thoughts keeps coming? What kind of thoughts keeps coming? The thoughts pertaining to your areas of involvements and attachments. The thoughts pertaining to the area of involvements and attachments. What they did in this country culturally, they said from childhood, the practices, you wake up and the first thing that you have to think about is God. The last thing that you do before you go to sleep is you think about God. The practice. Who is qualified to meditate? A person who is not seeking peace of mind, a person who wants to experience his own Atma Swarupam, it's called. It's called Atma Swarupam. A person who wants to experience one's own true nature is the one who's fit for, is the one who's qualified for meditation. And just saying, I want to experience my nature is not enough. You have to remove that which is blocking it. That is the pre-meditative practice. Everybody says, I want to know my nature, sir. I want to experience. Who doesn't want to experience? Everybody wants to experience. Who doesn't want to? But how many pays the price to experience? How many is willing to pay the price to experiences? What is the price that you pay? As Ramatirtha says beautifully, who doesn't want to become a Jesus Christ, he asks. Everybody wants to become a Jesus Christ. Who doesn't want to become a Christ? When the price is set, this is the price to become Jesus Christ, everybody withdraws. And what is the price to become a Christ? What is the price you have to pay to become a Jesus Christ? Crucifixion is the price. Crucifixion of the ego is the price you have to pay. And the mind doesn't want to pay this price. The mind says, without this, without crucifixion of the ego and all that, without this premeditative practices, straight away I will get into meditation and experience. Technically, understand this. All experiences happens in the medium of thought. All experiences requires an experiencer and an instrument of experience. Remember this. And Brahman is not an experience. Meditation is not an experience like this. Again, I repeat. All experiences happens in the realm of thoughts. Second, all experiences requires an experiencer, an instrument of experience, and the object of experience. Three things is required: the subject, the object, and the relevant instrument. The silence that we are talking about here, the silence that we are talking about, learn to dwell on silence in between the two ohms, is also a kind of thought, a thought where it is not an object, it is not an attribute, it is not something that can be verbalized by any word. That is where it cannot be verbalized. You cannot use any word. You cannot give any attribute to it. Neither is that silence an object of awareness. It is not that you are aware of silence, you become silent. I am aware of silent. The three things have come. The three things do not exist. That's why meditation is so subtle, so difficult, so beautiful, so wonderful an activity. Without preparation, it is futile to get into this practice. So what is the silence? The silence is not an object of awareness. It is not that you are aware of silence as an object. Then what is it? You are merged in silence. You are absorbed in silence. And the manifestation of the next to Om brings you back. The next chant Om brings you back. After a while, what happens when we go to the third topic? The third topic, what he talks about the procedural details. We will see how it happens there. You are in silence. You are absorbed in silence. There is no duality in that silence. Because of the residual vasanas, because of the residual things left behind, the next Om pops up. When the next Om pops up, the duality is back. After a while, what happens? After a while, what happens? You are in silence and that's it. There is no Om after that. There is no mantra, there is no chant, there is no flow. This is what is called as the state of self-realization. Such a beautiful, subtle practice that takes you from finite to infinite. Subtlety, the subtlest of activity, the subtlest of human activity is meditation. And without preparation, people are plunging into it. He says, they turn into ugly caricatures in life. Without the premeditative preparation, people getting into it turn into ugly caricatures. This is as far as the technique of meditation is concerned. What is meditation? Flow of thought. What is meditation? The flow of thought. Mind itself is a flow of thought. When it flows by itself, it is called indulgence. When the flow is monitored, guided, it is called meditation. It is called concentration. It is called meditation. In concentration, it is a field of activity. In meditation, it is just towards sound and silence. The Sanskrit word for sound and silence is matra, amatra. Matra means sound. Amatra means absence of sound. We don't even call it as silence. We say sound, absence of sound. Sound that arises out of silence stays and goes back into silence. The sound that comes out of silence, we have to use some word, no. So we use the word silence. Literally speaking, you have to call it as absence of. Literally speaking, what you have to use? Learn to use the word absence of sound. Silence is what we use for understanding purposes. Actually, it is absence of sound. And what is absence of sound? Words cannot describe that. What the Upanishad calls as anirvachaniya. The Upanishad calls it as anirvachaniya. Anirvachaniya means word cannot describe what it is. We can only say what it is not. It cannot be said what? You cannot say what it is. Why? Because to say what it is, it has to be objectified. If you have to say something, this is what it is. When you say something as this is what it is, you are objectifying it. You are qualifying it. And silence is not an object that can be quantified, qualified like that. Why? That silence is that which is closest to Brahman. Silence is not Brahman. Amatra is not Brahman. Amatra is that which is closest to Brahman. Amatra is closest to Brahman. Om is Shabda Brahman. And realization happens beyond these two. So, intellect is that, I'm summarizing now. Intellect keeps the flow in a direction, not allowing it to slip into anything else. Is called concentration, is called meditation. Second thing is meditation requires a lot of premeditative preparation, and that premeditative preparation is what we have seen as the spiritual courses renunciation and all that. Having done all that, relatively the mind becomes calm, pure. That pure, calm mind can meditate. Which I reversed in the previous session by saying, you don't meditate for peace of mind. You do the pre-meditative practices, the spiritual courses, prepare yourself and come for meditation. This is the technique of meditation. This is the topic, technique of meditation. The next topic is the principle underlying meditation, which we will continue in the next session, not for today. Today we only saw what is the principle of meditation. The instrument that is used is the intellect. Mantra is that which the mind uses the mantra. Intellect makes sure that the mind doesn't slip away from the mantra. And for the mind to choose the mantra and do it, it has to be calm. And that calm mind comes through pre-meditative practices. Can we do all this simultaneously, sir? Can we do all this simultaneously? Why can't I do little bit of meditation also and do this? It is not recommended at all. It is not recommended at all. Why it is not recommended? In meditation, if the calmness is not there, all the premeditative practices that you do gets undone by the frustration that happens because of meditation. You do the premeditative practices, you simultaneously you don't do. Focus on the premeditative preparation first, with the understanding that one day I will be qualified to do meditation. Don't simultaneously do the premeditative practices as well as the meditation. If you do that, this is the sad plight of the people, he says. While they indulge in desire-ridden selfish activity, and you try to meditate also, what happens? You become an ugly caricature. This is what the topic today is, the technique of meditation. Is it okay?
One question is there, sir.
Oh, we have a question also.
Subramaniam, I asked a question.
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah. Calm and peaceful helps to practice meditation. Can we say meditation also calms oneself? Is that what you are asking, Subramaniam?
Subramaniam, unmute yourself, please.
We initially start, as you were mentioning, calm and peaceful mind leads you to meditation. You are eligible to start your meditation.
Yes.
Then, over a period of time, you start meditating.
Yes.
And so that helps you once again to reach a state which is again calm and peaceful. Is it? Can we say that way it is complementary?
No. A calm mind meditative. Meditation doesn't lead to, again, meditation will not lead to peace and calmness. It's not that with the calm mind you meditate, more you meditate, you become more peaceful and calm. Not a cycle like that.
Not a cycle like that.
Not a cycle.
That is, it will help you to get rid of desires and...
Desires is gotten rid of through karma, bhakti, jnana, yogas and vairagya. The meditation, the practice of meditation will not help you to get rid of desire. The practice of meditation will get you only to be absorbed in, you become silent. Meditation, the practice of meditation is not to eliminate the desires. Desires gets eliminated only by
Your
the preparatory practices of karma bhakti jnana yogas. Meditation, in meditation, you are only absorbed in silence.
in silence.
In silence. When you come out of that silence, you will not be more peaceful, because manifestation of the thoughts manifesting itself is agitations. The flow of thought, the thought manifesting, the thought manifesting, and you following the flow of thought into action itself is an agitation from that standpoint of meditation. Therefore, you cannot say that
Meditation,
you can meditate, and more you meditate, more you become
calm, you can't say.
peaceful. That you cannot say. That is the wrong understanding. Are you able to follow what I am saying?
Yes.
Technically, how it works. See, your meditation is absorption in silence. What is the thought after that? After that, you get into activity, no?
Yes, you resume your activity.
When you resume your activity, you are out of that.
Calm approach.
Yes. Therefore, it is not that you are meditative, you become, you will be more calm. That is why meditation will never lead to, meditation can never give peace of mind. Meditation can never give calm mind. People talk about it because they do not know what meditation is, nor they have meditated. Nor they have done enough sadhana, nor they have done enough tapas to qualify themselves for meditation.
Meditation.
What people talk about meditation is what I spoke in the introductory classes as a forcefully stilling the thought for a few minutes. Forcefully making sure the thoughts doesn't arise for a few minutes is not meditation. Even there, you don't get peace of mind and all. You come out of that. You come out of that calm, silent state into an activity. That activity will be very
Frustrating.
very frustrating, very taxing. Therefore, you cannot become calm and peaceful. By more and more meditation will not make you more and more calm and peaceful. Meditation has a specific practice. Meditation has a specific technique. What is a specific technique? Absorption in thoughtlessness. And to be absorbed in thoughtlessness, you have to be vasana-lessness. Meditation is a practice to be absorbed in thoughtlessness. And thoughts will force itself out. How do you know the thoughts? How do you know the vasanas force itself out? The vasanas force itself out by thoughts just appearing all by itself without you having any say or control over it. Are you able to follow, Subramani?
Yes. So it's a prerequisite that you try to liquidate your asanas.
Exactly correct. You try to liquidate that first and then get into meditation. You don't get into meditation directly, because you have understood very clearly what is the purpose of meditation. The purpose of meditation is the training to be absorbed in
Thoughtlessness.
The thoughtlessness is what linguistically we call as silence. Linguistically we call as silence. So absorb, you practice to be in that thoughtless state. Over a period of time, when vasanas and all is reduced and you have reached the ultimate state of real meditation, which we will be seeing when we go to the fourth the topic procedural details. In the procedural details, we'll be discussing where you have actually reached the final act of meditation when all other vasanas are eradicated completely and you are in that silence and you just continue to be in that, which is the state of self-realization. So you understand very specifically the practice of what meditation is to teach you, what meditation is to practice, what meditation is for to be absorbed in
thoughtlessness.
And don't keep a full stop there. To be
silence.
absorbed in thoughtlessness, comma, naturally, not forcefully. Say that. Then only it is complete. Otherwise, it is half sentence.
Okay.
Meditation is a natural meditation is to be absorbed in the state of thoughtlessness, naturally, not
forcefully.
Not forcefully. People do it forcefully and they claim that they have experienced something, which is not, which has got nothing to do with meditation or self-realization. Is it clear now, Subramaniam?
Yes, yes, yes.
This is how it is. Is it okay?
Yes.
Huh? Yeah.
Yes. Okay, Guruji. Yes.
Okay. With this, we conclude for today. And the next topic, we continue with principle of meditation in the next session. Very good.